Yeah, let's see, wait a minute.
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
We're gonna get started.
Good afternoon, let's call the meeting to order, please. Thank everyone for coming. Let's call the meeting to order. It is, or workshop to order, I should say. It's Tuesday, May 15th. We're here at the Civic Center for a fire protection workshop discussion. And we will get started. And I think Mr. City Clerk is in charge. Well, you're in charge of that machine.
All right. So the point of this meeting is to discuss if we're going to move forward next year with the fire assessment, or if we're going to explore changing to a millage-based, based on discussion that we had between the last implementation. These numbers you're going to see throughout here are based on our last study. If we go the assessment route, we will have to do another study because there's been growth of the city, homes have been built, things have changed, so every year it has to be renewed. And she needs to know by June what we're going to do. So that's the point of where we're meeting, that's why we're here, and we'll get started. So we had 4 options for funding that we have found as we were doing research. The council needed to provide the direction as to how to proceed and which option they feel works best for Mexico Beach. Our first option is to continue funding based on our rate study using the court-tested historic demand methodology of a fire assessment. The call volume based for our study was 16.28% commercial, 80.23% residential, and 3.49% vacant land, which brought a rate breakdown of $3.56 per dwelling, 50 cents per square foot of commercial, and $54 a lot. As you know, we rolled that back 79% and did not assess the full amount. If it was the full amount, these are the numbers it would have been. So for sake of argument, we're going to use these same numbers, although I expect them they would be lower. Number 2 would be to go millage based. It would be add the cost of the fire department to our current city millage rate. The millage to support the increase based on our fiscal year 18 budget numbers would be 2.25 mils. And this would spread the cost of the department solely on property values. That 2.25 could also change as the preliminary numbers from the county of our taxable value should be out in the next 2 weeks. I just don't have them yet. Our third option would be to do a hybrid approach. We could impose a millage rate of 1.16 mils for property value and then impose a fire assessment at 50%. So this way, everybody would pay the flat millage rate for half of the expense and the other half would be assessed out. The fourth one,
would you mind going over that again, please? Number 3.
the hybrid?
Yeah.
So if we did a hybrid approach, that would be a combination of the two. Half of it funded by millage, half of it funded by assessment. So Panama City Beach did something similar to the hybrid. Option 4. This one's new and a little bit still developing. So we could request Bay County take over Mexico Beach Station 43 at the current Bay County fire tax rate of 1.38 mils. Bay County would employ, manage, and take over the existing assets. Our fire trucks would be turned over, our building would be turned over, and our fire chief and personnel would become Bay County employees, not city employees. Growth and future needs would be funded by the county using the Bay County fire tax, and the property tax bill would show a new tax from Bay County Fire. So as your property tax bill comes out now, it shows Bay County, school, city. There would be an additional one that says Bay County Fire. So that's our 4 options. From there, we're going to go into pros and cons of what I came up with as pros and cons of each scenario. Pros of the fire assessment: the assessment is based on the actual historic demand of the service. The percentage of the cost allocation directly relates to the percentage of calls to that specific category. If more calls go to commercial, the commercial percentage goes up. If more calls go, or less calls to commercial, that percentage goes down. The method we are currently using is the fire assessment method, and what the property owners are currently used to. Funds are dedicated specifically to the fire department. No council, no staff member, no one can take that money somewhere else. It must be used for fire.
And that can't be written off
Correct.
by...
I'm not a tax professional.
Yeah, right.
And that's my answer. I can't say for sure. Pros of going the millage route: the cost would be allocated on a property value basis. It would shift the burden from commercial to residential, specifically beachfront homes. It would benefit homestead property as they receive property value credit, making their taxable values lower. It's easily collected as one on the tax rate on the tax bill. Now, the assessment would also be on the tax bill, but this would show inside that tax rate. It would be tax deductible, and we would not need to do a study. We'd simply use our annual taxable value, calculate what mills it would cost to fund that department. The pros of the hybrid: the fire assessment allows the city to collect revenue from all property owners, since all properties benefit from the fire services, even if they pay nothing in property taxes. The charge is developed based on the value of service received. Property owners will pay for fire services based on the value of their house, not the value of the fire services. This allows the city to collect more from the higher taxable value property than the lower taxable property. This one's going to be a little confusing, that's why I'm going to elaborate on that again. So, your property value first at 1.16, $100,000 home, $116, and then you'd have an assessment on top of that. The combination of the two would more than likely be lower for all of commercial and all of residential under about 200,000. Pros of the Bay County millage. This would include all of the pros of the millage base approach plus the following. It would be our cheapest scenario. If we were to do it millage based, it'd be 2.25. The county will do it for 1.38 mils. It may not be the cheapest for everybody, but for the city as a whole, it would be cheapest. It would be an increased level of service. It could possibly lead to an increase in medical care and more resources to provide in larger critical incidents. We'd become part of the pool of the Bay County Fire Department, not the Mexico Beach Fire Department. They'd all come together. Now we'll get into the cons. So the cons of the fire assessment: commercial businesses feel they receive an unfair burden with less parcels to split the 13% cost. It's actually 17% cost. It may not be deductible for houses. Businesses can get the tax deduction. Cons of the millage approach: the shift of cost from commercial to residential. Wide variance in residential costs. Some beachfront homes could see over a $1,000 increase over the assessment. Future councils can shift the money from fire protection to any other budgetary want, no guarantee for funding the fire department. If it becomes part of our city millage, it can be used for anything our city tax is used for. It could also cause possible large swings as property values increase and decrease over time. And if the mill increases over statutory limitations, adoption will require a supermajority of the council to adopt. All 5 council members must vote yes to adopt significant millage increases over 115%. If we go the millage approach, we will need all 5 council members on board. The negatives of the hybrid approach: the millage portion is not a dedicated revenue source, and the millage cap must be taken into consideration as well. Negatives of Bay County MSTU: it'd be no longer a municipal department. We'd have no local or decreased local control. It'd be a new tax on the property tax bill that people haven't seen before, so it will take time to get used to. And it may take some time to implement. We don't know how fast the county can move. So the question everybody has is, how did option 4 all of a sudden become a possibility? In the spring of last year, myself and our former chief, Mark Stengel, met with Bay County and Fire Chief Bowen to explore the option of them taking us over. At that time, they were not interested, as they did not think they could do it for 1.38 mils because of the state our department was in. In the past 5 days, there's been discussions with Fire Chief Simmons and Bay County Fire Chief Bowen. The option is back on the table with them taking over control and the assets of the department. The county now shows interest as we have begun to solve some of the major issues of the first year. We've gotten our fire trucks, we've gotten a station repaired, we've gotten staff. We're moving in the direction they wanted to see. They don't think it will take the investment as they originally thought. To formally begin the process and look further into the topic, the council needs to formally request from the county that they look into and take over the Mexico Beach Fire Department at a cost of 1.38 mils, and at completion, appoint Chief Simmons as the county point of contact with the city. A lot of people have asked, as this has preliminarily been happening, what happens to our current staff? Well, they become county employees. But the county has said that we will have Danny as our point of contact. He will be the division chief running the department for the county, and will be at least one meeting a month for the council to have a direct contact with our department through the county. Next is the possible reevaluation of the fire assessment. Since the record keeping has improved with Chief Simmons coming, we could go about doing a new call data study. This is a quote from the Government Services Group. That's where this all came from. We may be able to create a hotel, motel, RV park category and commercial and see if it lowers the other commercial properties. However, that's going to mean that the motels will severely be impacted. The call data does not support a homesteaded versus non-homesteaded residential building category. Therefore, we cannot legally defend these rate categories if challenged in court. The taxable status of a property does not coincide with its use. Fire assessments are based on the property's use, not its value. But we may be able to create a vacation rental, motel, hotel, RV park rate if we could obtain where those rentals are. I have no idea how we'd ever do that. I don't think we can. Whoa, I went too far in my slides. Next one. All right. So I was tasked last week with giving a recommendation, and I was spending some time looking at pros and cons and trying very hard to be fair in my pro and con list, because as I thought of these scenarios before I wrote them down, I had a little mind bias of where I wanted to go. I had a recommendation saying that we go a hybrid approach, and then the Bay County option came on the table. So, after my review of pros and cons, I recommend we move forward with the current fire assessment and formally request the county consider the acquisition of the department. Due to the unknown time factor and how long it could take to negotiate with the county and get this passed, we need to keep moving forward. So that's why we should keep moving with the assessment, but we can abandon that. We just, due to time crunch, need to keep moving forward with something, or else we could have nothing. I'm optimistic the county can act fast enough and get it done, but I'm not positive they can act fast enough and get it done. So I think we go forward with our assessment approach. We approach the county, we ask them, please, let's do it. Let's have them take it over. Let's move that direction. A lot of other things with the county is, I think there may have been some other reasons why they're now interested as well, including Sugar Sands. I think that might be pushing them now. They have more MSTU money coming in from outside the county. So they don't want to renegotiate that with us. So this might be why they're looking at us. And also with Gulf County Ambulance, I think now that they're going to have to pay them to provide the free medical care to our citizens, that might be a cost they can write off over time. I think it's a matter of time if we go to Bay County Fire that they station us an ambulance personally, and I think this is a step in that direction. And that is my completion if we have questions.
There's only one thing that, when he talked about the increase in medical care, so when we do a fire assessment, it's the MSBU, and you cannot go higher than first response level. So when people say, why are you not paramedics? Well, it's because the statute does not let us operate as paramedics. I have paramedics that work for us. They just can't operate on that level. But it's different for counties, and so that's where you would get the increase in medical care, is the county runs paramedics as licensed paramedics on advanced life support apparatus, whatever that be, an engine or so the difference is, if you go to the MSDU, that's where you would get the increased medical care from immediately. Even if we didn't get an ambulance, you would see the paramedics operating at the paramedic level and not restrained to work at that first responder level. And that's where the increase, just to clarify, where your immediate increase in medical care would go up.
By going to the county, I believe our service will not suffer. At the very minimum, it will stay the same, but I firmly believe it will increase.
Over time especially.
Well, we pull out of the same pot as their MSTU is what would happen. They don't spread that out evenly based off, like Thomas Drive area where the fire station is, collects a significant amount of money, but some of that money funds Youngstown that has a brand new fire station that doesn't collect a lot. So negotiations every year would be, well, you know, you can, like any division chief, you just keep asking for more of that pot in your department, just like everyone else does. So that's the good thing, is it's not split just off what they take in.
Question, a couple actually. Where would our rating go if we went to that?
We would stay the 6 where we're at now until a new rating, and then we would combine to the county's rating, which is currently a 3. I do not know if the county will maintain a 3. They barely made it, so it could be a 4, but that wouldn't happen until the next ISO audit. We're going to stay where I close out for probably the next 4 years, regardless, because the audit's already been done, which is going to be a 6 is what I've been told, preliminary. And then eventually we will merge to whatever the county's entire rating is, which is currently a 3.
Okay, second question. If we should choose to go this method, the recommendation is that we would continue with the assessment until county takes over. From that standpoint, would we have an ability as citizens to pay the assessment either on a quarterly or a monthly, say, billed for the water bill.
Now, when I say we're going to move forward with the assessment until we hear from the county, what I mean by that is we are going to do the process to implement that assessment, not necessarily adopt it, but work towards that goal in case they don't take us. If they take us, we abandon it, we don't do anything, we don't send bills, we stop.
I understand that. My question really is a little further, a little different, because we should be able to do it in a timely manner. Should they still be interested, but not be able to take care of it within this fiscal year? So we would enter a new fiscal year needing to fund the fire department.
We would do it as the fire assessment on the tax bill, so whatever your tax bill arrangements would be. It would not be a separate invoice as it was this year. No matter what we do, it will not be assessment.
Could you stand a little closer to the microphone?
Sorry.
No matter what we do, it's going to be on the tax bill, whether it's an assessment, a tax, whatever.
Okay.
We're not going to collect it separately. It's been a
Okay.
nightmare, but I'm getting there, not collecting it separate.
Adrian, what happens if you paid it already, then it gets accepted, you get a refund?
I think we
That's-
don't.
I mean, you know,
I don't think we implement until October 1st, no matter what year. If we miss this October, I think we wait till next October,
Okay.
just to make it clean.
yeah.
We'll entertain questions or comments, and you just stand where you are, please.
Oh, good. Can I stand?
Hang on a minute. Go ahead, Bill.
I had a hard time hearing everything Bill had to say, but my question is, if we do the assessment, can you bill it on a monthly basis along with the water bill and trash pickup, and let us pay it on a monthly basis instead of lump sum?
If it goes to the assessment, it will be on the property tax bill.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, gosh, I finally agree with you. Adrian.
Uh-oh.
And with a smile.
Gosh, you're a liberal too.
Uh-oh.
No, but I agree with you totally on your proposal, what you think that we should do. I want to tell you people something. Our millage rate, based on your property value, is so screwed up in this town. If you go in and you study the different partials, you will discover that. For instance, and I go down there every year and I get nowhere with them. If you come in, which a certain person I know, a friend of mine, came in, they bought this place for $149,000. They went in and they left the footprint, tore out everything else. They have 4,984 square feet. They are one tier from 98. Okay. They had 2736 is heated. Big place, 2 lots. Their assessed value is $152,800, and their tax value or assessment is $102,800. The place is built same year mine was, but on the books it's going to tell you 1978. Now that's one example. If I'd known that, I maybe would have changed something else. Okay, we've got property on Maryland and property on Georgia. And when Chris was still here, he even offered to go down. I should have taken him up on. He offered to write a letter and go with me to the tax assessor office. If you have a piece of property that faces Maryland, you are assessed at $28,000 for your lot. But if you're across the drainage ditch, which it used to be, and you have a lot facing Georgia, then you're assessed at $61,000. They told me that was because I had a park behind me. And I said, that's not a park, that was a drainage ditch that we covered over. Well, it didn't make any difference. I don't have somebody living right next to me next door, so I pay higher tax. So all people on Georgia has to do that. If my neighbor's house catches on fire, they're gonna, and it's a 2-story, by the way, they're gonna have to take as many fire trucks and as many people and do as much with that as if my house caught on fire. But my house, I'll find my paper. My house, and I guess they just really like my house. Because my assessed value is $304,000 plus some more. And the taxable value is $253,930, which is way more than anybody even close to me. I go down every year and argue with them, I get nowhere. Because they talk to me, I know they're speaking English, but I do not know what they're saying. So, I'm all for assessed value, because it's not fair the other way. Because I'll have to pay way more than any of my neighbors. Oh, by the way, there's also some property in this town that has houses on them that aren't being assessed at all. They're being assessed as a vacant lot.
Anyone else? Just stand up and right where you are.
On the millage rate, it's, what was it, 1.38?
Yes, sir.
Does that's not locked, is that for a year? Is it locked for a year?
It hasn't-
Variable, isn't it?
It can be, the county commission will set it. It has yet to change since I've seen. I don't think there's anyone that plans to change it, but it could, but I don't think it ever will.
Is it evaluated every year? or-
They've been using that since they went paid 23 years ago,
Okay.
and it hasn't changed, and there really hasn't been much resistance. They just count on growth, and then when they had a lump, they
But if
they had enough of a reserve into enterprise fund that when they had the lump in 11, they just cut. I worked for Bay County when it happened. We just furloughed days, and then when it's good again. Well, now is a good time to approach them because that account is healthy, and that's part of the reason they're interested, because the city would only give them 500,000 versus they're gonna pay more than that to keep it coverage here, but their fund already has excess funds in it, so we come in at a good time with it.
All right, and we would still have our coverage, they would still have a fire, we still have a fire station here, and
They would take over all of our assets. The trucks would become county, the station would become county, the staff would become county,
Training, etc.
everything.
Yeah.
So if the county does take over and they staff our department here, that means that we will have a complement of at least 6 full-time, round-the-clock fire, as well as medical services?
That's a recommendation that our letter states that we want that in the division chief, so that way there's someone responsible for this division. So we would specifically request that from them, and then in future years, hopefully we would get more than 6. Would be the ultimate goal, and that's where I think to gain more than just 6 firemen, because the millage is healthy, we could say give us more, but initially they would absorb our 6 full-timers, and that was part of my agreement, is I don't want to see people get laid off, is they need to absorb the guys I'm hiring now, and then.
At the very least, they will have everything that we have under the assessment.
Okay, so there would be no lapse of coverage as far as personnel?
Correct.
it would be seamless, I guess. From our perspective.
From your perspective, for ours, it's just logistically it's difficult. But.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doug.
If Bay County takes over, whenever they take over, do they pay for the new fire truck?
We're gonna pay the new fire truck.
It's already been paid for.
Yeah. So that's gone, they'll get that new truck paid for.
That's probably another reason why they're willing to do it for 1.38 mils.
Yes, stand where you are again. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So is Plan B, the assessment, as you say, is that the only option for Plan B, or can the village also be a Plan B that we move forward on?
Our Plan B can be any one of the scenarios, but my recommendation for Plan B is the assessment, whatever the council chooses to do.
Because why would that be your recommendation? This is easier?
I actually think it's probably, well, I don't know which one's easier. I just think it's more fair than the other way, but someone's gonna get penalized. My commercial people out there are gonna disagree that it's not more fair, but, yeah.
The other authority is it takes a 5-0, so you can break a fire department very easily. It only takes one person to change their mind, and we're going back to a 10. Because if you go to the millage rate, it's not funded. So it's gonna take a 5-0 vote when it comes time to raise the millage.
To
And-
millage, okay.
And we don't have a say as staff in that, and if it doesn't pass, then we're laying off fire.
Yes, ma'am.
Lauren at Cafe 61st Street. I just have a quick question as far as, am I understanding that the ESU would be, all of this is just going to be fire? Fire is.
We are Mexico
a
Beach.
complete package?
We are Mexico Beach Fire Rescue right now. There is no ESU at this moment.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we would become Bay County Fire.
Okay, so then all of that is absorbed all into one?
Yeah.
Did I see? Correct? Couple questions. Yes, ma'am.
Adrian, you did a great job. I guess I'm a little confused because for years, every time we talk about Bay County taking over, it came back and said, oh, it would be over $1 million. So I'm just a little leery here on all of a sudden, this is all about Bay County taking over.
Chief Bowen wasn't interested when I first approached it. I was asked numerous times why we can't go millage and why the county won't take us over. And it was just in too far a shambles to put it, that's just the truth. It's not a good thing, but the fire department was in shambles. We didn't have operational trucks. We didn't have certified firemen. There was nothing here. There was no support. They didn't feel the community would support it. They don't want to implement this without the community support. So it's just the fact of what's changed over the last year. And that's what Chief Bowen made clear to me. Our meeting was not to discuss this. It turned into this. And due to all the citizens asking me, why won't the county take over? Why won't they help us? And why don't we go millage based? And this would solve both of those. So.
I think also with the sugar sands going on, they're going to have that MSQ money. I think timing just aligned well.
Right.
We're saying it's going to cost us $800,000 to $900,000 a year to do this. They're saying they can do it for $552,000. That's a rough estimate on 1.38 with our property value. So if they can do it for $300,000 less dollars with our, but they're not really doing it with less. They're pooling all of our assets together with the rest of the county that's unincorporated and allocating.
Anyone else out front? Okay, I have a couple of questions. What, you said that, Danny, you mentioned that we're here at a 6 for 4 years. Many times I've read and heard of that we request another evaluation.
Takes about 2 years. We could look at doing that. It takes about 2 years to request a new one. That's why when I initially said that if we risked going to a 10, we were going to live with that situation for about 2. We'll get our official notice September 11th, 2018.
But this would represent a significant change in the operations of our city. I'm just saying that we could do that.
It would take Bay County requesting it once they took it over, which I could look into, and then we would be at that 2-year deadline to wait for it. So, yes, sir.
The question is, when you say the county takes our assets, what do they take? They take our equipment. Correct.
And building.
What do you mean our building? Describe that.
If they don't take over the fire station, the city would still be expected to maintain it.
We deed it to them?
I would say that would be a yes.
We deed them the fire station and the land.
I'd say good riddance. I saw the fire station.
I'm sure there'd be negotiations as far as not doing it, but then the city would be responsible for maintenance. So basically Bay County would submit a needs of maintenance request or whatever's needed, and the city's going to have to pay for whatever it takes to keep it, it'll be done.
Has that been broached? Was that part of the discussion?
It was discussed with Chief Bowen, yes, we
The
did.
land and the building?
Yes, sir.
Well, the reason I asked that, our current fire station is also linked to our police department.
We looked up the lots today, they're actually, you got it.
If you look at, there's 2 separate lots there.
Yes.
There's the parking lot and the police department on one lot. Then there's the fire department and that back parking carport. We would have to get an agreement with the county for us to utilize
So the
or
lot
share that
lines do
carport.
we didn't build something in the center of the lot.
That is correct.
But the carport would be on the fire department's parcel, so we would have to negotiate that part.
Okay. I just was curious if we looked.
Well, no, that's a nice situation.
Yes, Lance, go ahead.
I was just wondering, how close are we to collecting what we set out to collect. Because we got like to the end of May for the first
For last
assessment.
year, for the first year.
I mean, is there a lot of people paid up? Because that's what's helping the situation, that's what I'm asking.
As of this exact second, we have collected 58.1%.
Okay.
And there is,
Better not all.
there is 2 weeks remaining.
Okay.
Okay, so let me sort of just
We dropped a lot.
sort of bring this back into focus. We're trying tonight, for the workshop, we've been given the options, and your recommendation is to move forward with Bay County, but yet to establish to proceed on with the assessment policy, and then in hopes that, at least for your recommendation. I'd like to get the councils of the four, what you've seen, what we've heard, out here. What is Bay County seem, is that sort of the better of the scenarios of what we've seen?
I like the idea of assuming that we will ask Bay County to do it. Over the years, we've heard people say, why can't we hook in with Bay County? And Danny's assessment of why they haven't been interested, I can understand. We didn't have, I mean, they would have had to spend a lot of money just to get our building up to date. And now that we have taken that step, I think it'd be a good idea to go with the Bay County. You know that we'll always have a fire department. You know, they're not gonna be taking it away. We will have a fire department. And if something happens, if we keep it and something happens, who knows? You know, it could disband in 3 years. We don't know that. So I like the idea with the Bay County.
And I think,
Just a minute.
oh,
No, I'm sorry, not you. We're gonna keep it here for a few minutes.
well, he may have something more important to say. I think you're right about what's happening around us is one thing that kind of solidified their feelings, because they're going to get more tax revenue off of that, and they're also going to be required to do more,
And
which,
pay us more.
which means in the long run, being a part of Bay County is going to benefit Mexico Beach much better than we've ever been in this situation before. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, let them have the property, let them have the building, and let them maintain it. And everything, and so we will know exactly what we're spending each year. And so we're not, if we maintain it as an independent like we are right now, and we have trouble with a brand new truck out of warranty, then we're asking people, give us another $150,000 to fix this truck. Well, that goes away. And I'm ready for Bay County to accept some responsibility for Mexico Beach being here, which they haven't done a good job before.
There's one thing I forgot to add earlier, just so everyone's clear. So when we send a letter, we're asking the county commissioners to look into this. Now, staff recommendation from County Manager Bob Micah and from Fire Chief Bowen is to absorb Mexico Beach. But just so everyone knows, this doesn't mean this will happen for sure, and that's part of why we continue with the assessment. What would it, according to Jennifer Schuler, the email I got, she's the lawyer for Bay County, she said if the commission votes to take it, which it would be staff recommendation, and in the history of the last few years, County Manager Bob Micah's recommendations have pretty much all been made, so we have no reason to believe they wouldn't do it. But what it would take is the city would need the consent by ordinance to allow the county to implement the MSTU, and that's what would happen next after they look at it and they come back and say, yes, we're interested in doing this. Just know that this doesn't mean for sure they'll do it, because just like I can't make that decision, Bob Micah and Chief Bowen can't make the decision. They want it, but it's going to take the commission to approve it also. I just want everyone to be clear on that, so that in case the commissioners say they don't want it, it's their recommendation to take over. It doesn't mean it'll 100% happen.
Well, they have the best argument they've had in years with the property coming in around us, that we were having trouble trying to figure out how we're going to handle it. So let the county handle it, and they have more money every year by not raising the millage because of the beach, well, everything that's in Bay County.
And I'm positive I have a positive outlook, they'll take it. I just want to make sure everyone's clear that this doesn't mean
Unincorporated.
it's 100%.
Well,
That's a big difference.
Yeah, they only get that millage in unincorporated Bay
well, they
County.
still get
We
more,
would be the only city that they would be, that this,
yeah, they still get more than we do.
Yeah, we would be the only city right now that would do
And
it.
if we don't get this handled, I'm going to be disappointed in you.
Wow.
I also am in favor of the Bay County. One of the reasons is over the past 10 years, 11 years that I've been here and I've sat out there, I've watched the councils try and work hard to handle our fire departments with some bad input sometimes from the fire departments and didn't help them. I think this takes all of that away. Once it gets to the county, if it goes that way, I think we have certainty of what we're going to have without having fights up here to try and help our citizens, or citizens yelling at us because we're making decisions that we think is best on the city. I think it's the best way to go. Not worried about giving any land to Bay County. Bay County just gave us, I think, a beach and several pieces of land this year.
Yeah.
So, you know,
well, if that's the course that the council feels comfortable in, all we have to do, while this is just a workshop, is to just give notice that let's proceed with that, take a formal, we can do that tonight. We can make that, we can give direction to proceed with a letter, as was recommended, and see what the county says. We can always come back to the table and say, hey, here's what we said, here's, you know, what we, but, and I'm for not, I mean, I don't like what we did, obviously, in terms of the assessment, the way it was handled. I don't like the methodology that was used, but if we're gonna get away from that, and I'd rather even table making a decision about a methodology to assess until we get something from,
Hope for a quick response.
yeah, well, I think we can.
If I were to draft the letter, would you be willing to sign it? The formal request to the county?
Depends on what it says.
We'll work together to make it say what it needs to say.
Do we have to have it in have the idea that we will go forward for an assessment if the county doesn't approve it by a certain date? Do we have time to wait?
That's what drove this meeting. She needs to know by June. She didn't say when in June, but by June, if we are going to re-engage in our service agreement with her, have the reevaluation done, and then move forward with that. So we're hoping to get a quick response, and then we won't even have to worry about it.
Right.
So if we request the county to do this today.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And if we had a response by next Tuesday at a meeting, that was fine. If we don't, we could still discuss the assessment next Tuesday. Or do you want to do that all tonight?
I would bet we could even go to the first meeting in June. I can't say for sure because she didn't tell me when in June. She just said by June. I originally didn't plan to discuss this till next week's meeting.
Well, I don't think the county gave us this information to tell us nothing.
I agree with you.
No.
I don't think that happened. I don't think they threw that out there to say, oh, well, no, we don't want to do that. I don't think that happened. Now, the mechanics of getting it done,
Might
but
take
as
a
far
while.
as dealing with a decision about an assessment, I think there's still time to do that.
I would say that's fair to say. I believe there's still time. I just don't know how much.
Right.
Adrian, I'd have to go along with what Joy said. I think this was a fantastic presentation. And to get all this in such simple terms with people like me bugging you nearly every day, I think it's real good. And by the way, Daniel, if you need any help, Rex will be glad to go over there with you.
Bill, you got a question?
Quick question, has it been considered, or would there be any legal issues to approach Gulf County?
So our neighboring Gulf County, that one of the departments is already a 10, the other one is not a paid fire department. And if we did approach that volunteer fire department, half of the city is too far away. So you would basically give half of Mexico Beach a rating, and the other half you would say would get a 10. And we would lose all income from Bay County because we cover some of theirs unincorporated area, and they pay us money for that. So it's just, I'm not even sure you can legally do it, but it wouldn't help our situation too.
Well, Bay County's richer.
Well, they have paid firemen too, so.
Good answer, thank you.
Yes.
If we were to do the Bay County, let Bay County incorporate, is that forever, or is it a 5-year contract, 2-year contract?
I mean, when we do the ordinance, unless the city changed it, it's forever. Now, if a council said we're gonna do something else, they would have to change the ordinance. But once we do the ordinance, it's pretty implemented forever, and they've been doing it a long time this way. It's not really challenged the way they've been doing it.
Any other questions out? Everybody sort of got a feel for, everybody sort of?
Well, I apologize to everybody for this flying, like, Mel saw 5 drafts of this presentation as it was changing still a half hour before this meeting. So I apologize how fast and he just kind of dumped on everything at once. But
No, it was well done. It was
Yeah.
well done. Simple's best. That other thing that we did with Sandy was way too, it was too convoluted for me. And I didn't like the bottom line to start with. Anyway.
Will this be on the website so everyone can see it, where all the gossip news won't be going around?
the video will be online tomorrow as long as I'm not at Bay County speaking with the fire chief with
PowerPoint here, if you want.
What's the PowerPoint?
Put that on the website.
I can put it on the website.
Is there any other comments from the table? Mel, do you have anything?
I'm good.
What about your comments, Greg?
Oh, I think it's a win for us. Anytime you can get more services, and hopefully, we talk about ambulance service a lot of times, and I've had to use that at one time, and I was appreciative that Adrian showed up and the chief and everything, but I would love to have seen some people that could really do something. So, I mean, we've talked about that, and I just think it's a win situation for us.
Yeah.
The initial request is just for the staffing. The ambulances would come, we're asking them for a reasonable amount so they don't say no.
No, I think down the road, we're going to.
Because the ambulance is $400,000 a year to staff, so down the road, it would be like, next year as a division chief, I'd say, hey, Chief Bowen, my city wants, or our city, as coming here wants an ambulance.
When you dial 911, the Gulf County ambulance is gonna come.
Right.
They're still coming, and you'll probably get ALS paramedics on the fire engine here, which we could not provide under statute.
Yeah, but as we get the building coming up here that we've been talking about over the next 5 or 6 or 7 years, it's not to say we won't have our own ER people here.
I think they'll get sick of paying golf personally.
Yeah.
That's the end goal. We just can't, that's not on the initial
Yeah,
negotiations.
we're not talking about that right now. I didn't mean to bring that up.
Thank everyone for coming. I appreciate the information.
Yes, thank you.
Motion for adjournment.
You're doing good, Mr. Adrian.